All right, let's start this recording over, cause I feel like nobody wants to hear me like talk about dinosaurs on my head for too long before starting reading. Let's see, what kind of music do we want? We want let's see. Gospel waltz, industrial rock. This pop filters keeps drifting away from me. Memphis blues, brooding, honky tonk. Not bad. Memphis blues brooding nightclub is the selection here. I think this pop filter is like busted or something, because this arm that's holding it up is not holding. Ooh. I'm gonna have to figure out a solution later. But for now, everybody, get your butts in your arms and get ready for the scariest time of my life, because I'll be reading creepypastas. Let me just put up a thingy here. Let me put up a text thingy. All right. Let's see. Create a new text. Reading. I could have sworn I had one already, but I guess not. A little close to the mic. I still a bit blown out. Okay. How about this? I'm further off. It's hard with this thing in front of my face like this, but that's just how it is. I'm gonna have to figure it out later. Let me get this script here. Not jam. Yes, okay. Boof. A little further. How about this? No, reading creepypastas. Jeff the Killer. We're gonna start off with a classic one. Seems better, thank you. Thank you so much. It's gonna be red, because it's scary. Dark red, because it's scarier, because it's dark. It's gonna have an outline that is blank. Oh yeah, dark mode. I could, yeah, I will assume dark mode in a moment, yes. It's gonna be so scary. Oh my god. I'm just shaking in my pants already. Oh my god. So okay, so this whole mic deal in front of my face is kind of inconvenient, because it's ruining my face tracking a little bit, but it should be fine. It should be fine. So, yes, the first creepypasta I will be reading is Jeff the Killer. It's a classic. It features a guy that looks like this. This is Jeff. He's the killer. If you want me to read something in particular, do send it to me in chat. I won't be responding too much because I'll be busy reading, but I'll comment on your stuff occasionally. So, let me turn down the music a tad. Blown out again. Okay, man, I gotta like figure out the proper distance. This pop filter is like broken, man. I'm gonna take it off for now. Alright. At this distance, is this okay? Right, so I'm gonna start reading and you just say if it's good or not. Jeff the Killer. Excerpt from a local newspaper. Ominous unknown killer is still at large. After weeks of unexplained murders, the ominous unknown killer is still on the rise. After little evidence has been found, a young boy states that he survived one of the killer's attacks and bravely tells his story. I had a bad dream, and I woke up in the middle of the night, says the boy. I saw that for some reason the window was open, even though I remembered being closed before I went to bed. I got up and shut it once more. Afterwards, I simply crawled under my covers and tried to get back to sleep. That's when I had a strange feeling, like someone was watching me. I looked up and nearly jumped out of my bed. There, and a little ray of light illuminating from between my curtains, were a pair of true eyes. These weren't regular eyes. They were dark, ominous eyes. They were bordered in black and just plain out terrified me. That's when I saw his mouth. A long, horrendous smile that made every hair on my body stand up. The figure stood there, watching me. Finally, after what seemed like forever, he said it. A simple phrase, but said in a way that only a madman could speak. He said, "Go to sleep." I let out a scream. That's what sent him at me. He pulled up a knife, aiming at my heart. He jumped on top of my bed. I fought him back. I kicked. I punched. I rolled around, trying to knock him off me. That's when my dad busted in. The man threw the knife. It went into my dad's shoulder. The man probably would have finished him off if one of the neighbors hadn't alerted the police. They drove into the parking lot and ran towards the door. The man turned and ran down the hallway. I heard a smash like glass breaking. As I came out of my room, I saw the window that was pointing towards the back of my house was broken. I looked out to see him vanish into the distance. I can tell you one thing. I will never forget that face. Those cold, evil eyes and that psychotic smile. They will never leave my head. Police are still on the look for this man. If you see anyone that fits this description in the story, please contact your local police department. Jeff and his family had just moved into a new neighborhood. His dad had gotten a promotion at work, and they thought it would be best to live in one of those fancy neighborhoods. Jeff and his brother Lou couldn't complain though. A new, better house. What was not to love? As they were getting unpacked, one of their neighbors came by. "Hello," she said. "I'm Barbara. I live across the street from you. Well, I just wanted to introduce myself and to introduce my son." She turns around and calls her son over. "Billy, these are our new neighbors." Billy said hi and ran back to play in his yard. "Well," said Jeff's mom, "I'm Margaret, and this is my husband Peter and my two sons, Jeff and Lou." They each introduced themselves, and then Barbara invited them to her son's birthday. Jeff and his brother were about to object when their mother said that they would love to. When Jeff and his family are done packing, Jeff went up to his room. "Mom, why would you invite us to some kid's party? If you haven't noticed, I'm not some dumb kid." "Jeff," said his mother, "we just moved here. We should show that we want to spend time with our neighbors. Now, we're going to that party and that's final." Jeff started to talk, but stopped himself, knowing that he couldn't do anything. Whenever his mom said something, it was final. He walked up to his room and plopped down on his bed. He sat there looking at the ceiling when suddenly he got a weird feeling. Not so much a pain, but a weird feeling. He dismissed it as just some random feeling. He heard his mother call him down to get his stuff, and he walked down to get it. The next day, Jeff walked downstairs to get breakfast and got ready for school. As he sat there eating his breakfast, he once again got that feeling. This time it was stronger. It gave him a slight tugging pain, but he once again dismissed it. As he and Lou finished breakfast, they walked down to the bus stop. They sat there waiting for the bus, and then, all of a sudden, some kid on a skateboard jumped over them, only inches above their laps. They both jumped back in surprise. "Hey, what the hell?" The kid landed and turned back to them. He kicked his skateboard up and caught it with his hands. The kid seems to be about 12, 1 year younger than Jeff. He wears a Aeropostale shirt and ripped blue jeans. "Well, well, well, it looks like we got some new meat." Suddenly, 2 other kids appeared. One was super skinny, and the other was huge. "Well, since you're new here, I'd like to introduce ourselves. Over there is Keith." Jeff and Lou looked over to the skinny kid. He had a dopey face that you would expect a sidekick to have. "And he's Troy." They looked over at the fat kid. Talk about a tabulard. This kid looked like he hadn't exercised since he was crawling. "And I," said the first kid, "am Randy. Now, for all the kids in this neighborhood, there's a small prize for bus fare, if you catch my drift." Leo stood up, ready to punch the lights out of the kid's eyes, when one of his friends pulled a knife on him. "Tusk, tusk, tusk. I had hoped you would be more cooperative, but it seems we must do this the hard way." The kid walked up to Lou and took his wallet out of his pocket. Jeff got that feeling again. Now it was truly strong, a burning sensation. He stood up, but Lou gestured him to sit down. Jeff ignored him and walked up to the kid. "Listen here, you little punk. Give back my bro's wallet or else." Randy put the wallet in his pocket and pulled out his own knife. "Oh, and what will you do?" Just as he finished the sentence, Jeff popped the kid in the nose. As Randy reached for his face, Jeff grabbed the kid's wrist and broke it. Randy screamed and Jeff grabbed the knife from his hand. Troy and Keith rushed Jeff, but Jeff was too quick. He threw Randy to the ground. Keith lashed out at him, but Jeff ducked and stabbed him in the arm. Keith dropped his knife and fell to the ground, screaming. Troy rushed him too, but Jeff didn't even need the knife. He just punched Troy straight in the mouth or in the stomach, and Troy went down. As he fell, he puked all over. Lou could do nothing but look in amazement at Jeff. "Jeff, how'd you—" That was all he said. They saw the bus coming and knew they'd be blamed for the whole thing. So they started running as fast as they could. As they ran, they looked back and saw the bus driver rushing over to Randy and the others. As Jeff and Lou made it to school, they didn't dare to tell what happened. All they did was sit and listen. Lou just thought of that as his brother beating up a few kids, but Jeff knew it was more. It was something scary. As he got that feeling, he felt how powerful it was, the urge to just hurt someone. He didn't like how it sounded, but he couldn't help feeling happy. He felt that strange feeling go away and stay away for the entire day of school, even as he walked home due to the whole thing near the bus stop. And how now he probably wouldn't be taking the bus anymore. He felt happy. When he got home, his parents asked him how his day was, and he said in a somewhat ominous voice, "It was a wonderful day." Next morning, he heard a knock at his front door. He walked down to find 2 police officers at the door. His mother looking back at him with an angry look. "Jeff, these police officers tell me that you attacked 3 kids, that it wasn't regular fighting, and that they were stabbed. Stabbed, son!" Jeff's gaze fell to the floor, showing his mother that it was true. Mom, they were the ones who pulled the knives on me and Lou. Son, said one of the cops, we found 3 kids, 2 stabbed, 1 having a bruise on his stomach. And we have witness proving that you fled the scene. Now what does that tell us? Jeff knew it was no use. He could say him and Lou had been attacked, but then there was no proof it was not them who attacked first. They couldn't say that they weren't fleeing because, truth be told, they were. So Jeff couldn't defend himself, or Lou. Son, call down your brother. Jeff couldn't do it since it was him who beat up all the kids. Sir, it was me. I was the one who beat up the kids. Lou tried to hold me back, but he couldn't stop me. The cop looked at his partner and they both nodded. Well, kid, looks like a year in juvie. Wait, says Lou. They all looked up to see him holding a knife. The officers pulled their guns and locked them on Lou. It was me. I beat up those little punks. Have the marks to prove it. He lifted up his sleeves to reveal cuts and bruises as if he was in a struggle. Son, just put the knife down, said the officer. Lou held up the knife and dropped it to the ground. He put his hands up and walked over to the cops. No, Lou, it was me. I did it. Jeff had tears running down his face. Huh, poor bro, trying to take the blame for what I did. Well, take me away. The police led Lou out to the patrol car. Huh. Lou, tell them it was me. Tell them. I was the one who beat up those kids. Jeff's mother put her hands on his shoulders. Jeff, please, you don't have to lie. We know it's Lou. You can stop. Jeff watched helplessly as the cop car speeds off with Lou inside. A few minutes later, Jeff's dad pulled into the driveway, seeing Jeff's face and knowing something was wrong. Son, what is it? Jeff couldn't answer. His vocal cords were strained from crying. Instead, Jeff's mother walked his father inside to break the bad news to him as Jeff wept in the driveway. After an hour or so, Jeff walked back into the house, seeing that his parents were both shocked, sad, and disappointed. He couldn't look at them. He couldn't see how they thought of Lou when it was his fault. He just went to sleep, trying to get the whole thing off his mind. 2 days went by with no word from Lou at JDC. No friends to hang out with, nothing but sadness and guilt. That is until Saturday, when Jeff is woke up by his mother with a happy, sunshiny face. Jeff, it's the day, she said as she opened up the curtains and let light flood into his room. What's today? Asked Jeff as he stirs awake. Why, it's Billy's birthday. He was now fully awake. Mom, you're joking, right? You don't expect me to go to some kid's birthday party after... There was a long pause. Jeff, we both know what happened. I think this party could be the thing that brightens up the past days. Now, get dressed. Jeff's mother walked out of the room and downstairs to get ready herself. He fought himself to get up. He picked out a random shirt and a pair of jeans and walked downstairs. He saw his mother and father all dressed up. His mother in a dress and his father in a suit. He thought, why they would ever wear such a fancy clothes to a kid's party? Son, is that all you're going to wear? Said Jeff's mom. Hold on, let me reread that one. Son, is that all you're going to wear? Said Jeff's mom. Better than wearing too much, he said. His mother pushed down the feeling to yell at him and hid it with a smile. Now, Jeff, we may be overdressed, but this is how you go if you want to make an impression, said his father. Jeff grunted and went back up to his room. I don't have any fancy clothes, he yelled downstairs. Just pick out something, called his mother. He looked around in his closet for what he would call fancy. He found a pair of black dress pants he had for special occasions and an undershirt. He couldn't find a shirt to go with it, though. He looked around and found only striped and patterned shirts, none of which go with dress pants. Finally, he found a white hoodie and put it on. "You're wearing that," they both said. His mother looked at her watch. "Oh, no time to change. Let's just go," she said as she herded Jeff and his father out the door. They crossed the street over to Barbara and Billy's house. They knocked on the door and it appeared that Barbara, just like his parents, way overdressed. As they walked inside, all Jeff could see were adults. No kids. "The kids are out in the yard, Jeff. How about you go and meet some of them?" said Barbara. Jeff walked outside to a yard full of kids. They were running around in weird cowboy costumes and shooting each other with plastic guns. He might as well be standing on a Toys R Us. Suddenly, a kid came up to him and handed him a toy gun and hat. "Hey, wanna play?" he said. "Ah, no, kid. I'm way too old for this stuff." The kid looked at him with that weird puppy dog face. "Please," said the kid. "Fine," said Jeff. He put on the hat and started to pretend to shoot at the kids. At first he thought it was totally ridiculous, but then he started to actually have fun. It might not have been super cool, but it was the first time he had done something that took his mind off of Lou. So he played with the kids for a while, until he heard a noise. A weird rolling noise. Then it hit him. Randy, Troy, and Keith all jumped over the fence on their skateboards. Jeff dropped the fake gun and ripped off the hat. Randy looked at Jeff with a burning hatred. "Hello, Jeff, is it?" he said. "We have some unfinished business." Jeff saw his bruised nose. "I think we're even. I beat the crap out of you, and you get my brother sent to JDC. Randy got an angry look in his eyes. "Oh no, I don't go for even. I go for winning. You may have kicked our asses that one day, but not today." As he said that, Randy rushed at Jeff. They both fell to the ground. Randy punched Jeff in the nose, and Jeff grabbed him by the ears and head-busted him. Jeff pushed Randy off of him, and both rose to their feet. Kids were screaming and parents were running out of the house. Troy and Keith both pulled guns out of their pockets. "No one interrupts or guts will fly," they said. Randy pulled a knife on Jeff and stabbed it into his shoulder. Jeff screamed and fell to his knees. Randy started kicking him in the face. After 3 kicks, Jeff grabs his foot and twists it, causing Randy to fall to the ground. Jeff stood up and walked towards the back door. Troy grabbed him. "Need some help?" He picks Jeff up by the back of the collar and throws him through the patio door. As Jeff tries to stand, he is kicked down to the ground. Randy repeatedly starts kicking Jeff until he starts to cough up blood. "Come, Jeff, fight me!" He picks Jeff up and throws him into the kitchen. Randy sees a bottle of vodka on the counter and smashes the glass over Jeff's head. "Fight!" He throws Jeff back into the living room. "Come on, Jeff, look at me!" Jeff glances up, his face riddled with blood. "I was the one who got your brother sent to JDC, and now you're just gonna sit there and let him rot in there for a whole year? You should be ashamed." Jeff starts to get up. "Oh, finally, you stand and fight." Jeff is now to his feet, blood and vodka on his face. Once again he gets that strange feeling, the one in which he hasn't felt for a while. "Finally, he's up," says Randy as he runs at Jeff. That's when it happens. Something inside Jeff snaps. His psyche is destroyed. All rational thinking is gone. All he can do is kill. He grabs Randy and pile drives him to the ground. He gets on top of him and punches him straight in the heart. The punch causes Randy's heart to stop. As Randy gasps for breath, Jeff hammers down on him, punch after punch. Blood gushes from Randy's body until he takes one final breath and dies. Everyone's looking at Jeff now. The parents, the crying kids, even Troy and Keith. Although they easily break from their gaze and point their guns at Jeff. Jeff sees the guns trained on him and runs for the stairs. As he runs, Troy and Keith let out fire on him, each shot missing. Jeff runs up to the stairs. He hears Troy and Keith follow up behind. As they let out their final rounds of bullets, Jeff ducks into the bathroom. He grabs the towel rack and rips it off the wall. Troy and Keith race in, knives ready. Troy swings his knife at Jeff, who backs away and bangs the towel rack into Troy's face. Troy goes down hard, and now all that's left is Keith. He's more agile than Troy, though, and ducks when Jeff swings the towel rack. He dropped the knife and grabbed Jeff by the neck. He pushed him into the wall. A thing of bleach fell down on top of him from the top shelf. It burnt both of them, and they both started to scream. Jeff wiped his eyes as best he could. He pulled back the towel rack and swung it straight into Keith's head. As he lay there, bleeding to death, he let out an ominous smile. What's so funny? Asked Jeff. Keith pulled out a lighter and switched it on. What's funny, he said, is that you're covered in bleach and alcohol. Jeff's eyes widened as Keith threw the lighter at him. As soon as the flame made contact with him, the flames ignited the alcohol in the vodka. While the alcohol burned him, the bleach bleached his skin. Jeff let out a terrible screech as he caught on fire. He tried to roll out the fire, but it was no use. The alcohol had made him a walking inferno. He ran down the hall and fell down the stairs. Everybody started screaming as they saw Jeff, now a man on fire, dropped to the ground, nearly dead. The last thing Jeff saw was his mother and the other parents trying to extinguish the flame. That's when he passed out. When Jeff woke, he had the cast wrapped around his face. He couldn't see anything. But he felt a cast on his shoulder and stitches all over his body. He tried to stand up, but he realized that there was some tube in his arm, and when he tried to get it up, it fell out, and the nurse rushed in. I don't think he can get out of bed just yet, she said as she put him back in his bed and reinserted the tube. Jeff sat there with no vision, no idea what his surroundings were. Finally, after hours, he heard his mother. Honey, are you okay? She asked. Jeff couldn't answer though. His face was covered and he was unable to speak. Oh, honey, I have great news. After all the witnesses told the police that Randy confessed of trying to attack you, they decided to let Lou go. This made Jeff almost bolt up, stopping halfway, remembering the tube coming out of his arm. He'll be out by tomorrow, and then you two will be able to be together again. Jeff's mother hugs Jeff and says her goodbyes. The next couple of weeks were those where Jeff was visited by his family. Then came the day where his bandages were to be removed. His family were all there to see it, what he would look like. As the doctors unwrapped the bandages from Jeff's face, everyone was on the edge of their seats. They waited until the last bandage holding the cover over his face was almost removed. Let's hope for the best, said the doctor. He quickly pulls the cloth, letting the rest fall from Jeff's face. Jeff's mother screams at the sight of his face. Lou and Jeff's dad stare awestruck at his face. What? What happened to my face? Jeff said. He rushed out of bed and ran to the bathroom. He looked in the mirror and saw the cause of the distress. His face. It is horrible. His lips were burnt to a deep shape of red. His face was turned into a pure white color, and his hair singed from brown to black. He slowly put his hand to his face. It had a sort of leathery feel to it now. He looked back at his family, then back at the mirror. Jeff, said Lou, it's not that bad. Not that bad, said Jeff. It's perfect. His family were equally surprised. Jeff started laughing uncontrollably. His parents noticed that his left eye and hand were twitching. Jeff, are you okay? Okay? I've never felt more happy. Ha 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 ha. Look at me. This face goes perfectly with me. He can't stop laughing. He stroked his face, feeling it, looking at it in the mirror. What caused this? Well, you may recall that when Jeff was fighting Randy, something in his mind, his sanity snapped. Now he was left as a crazy killing machine. That is, his parents didn't know. Doctor, said Jeff's mom, is my son alright? You know, in the head? Oh yes. His behavior is typical for patients that have taken very large amounts of painkillers. If his behavior doesn't change in a few weeks, bring him back here and we'll give him a psychological test. Oh, thank you, doctor. Jeff's mother went over to Jeff. Jeff, sweetie, it's time to go. Jeff looks away from the mirror. His face still formed into a crazy smile. "'Kay, mommy, ha ha ha!" His mother took him by the shoulder and took him to get his clothes. "This is what came in," said the lady at the desk. Jeff's mom looked down to see the black dress pants and white hoodie her son wore. Now they were clean of blood and now stitched together. Jeff's mother led him to his room and made him put his clothes on. Then they left, not knowing that this was their final day of life. Later that night, Jeff's mother woke to a sound coming from the bathroom. It sounded as if someone was crying. She slowly walked over to see what it was. When she looked into the bathroom, she saw a horrendous sight. Jeff had taken a knife and carved a smile into his cheeks. "Jeff, what are you doing?" asks his mother. Jeff looked over to his mother. "I couldn't keep smiling, Mommy. It hurt after a while. Now I can smile forever." Jeff's mother noticed his eyes ringed in black. "Jeff, your eyes!" His eyes were seemingly never closing. "I couldn't see my face. I got tired and my eyes started to close. I burned out the eyelid so I could forever see myself, my new face." Jeff's mother slowly started to back away, seeing that her son was going insane. "What's wrong, Mommy? Aren't I beautiful?" "Yes, son," she said. "Yes, you are. Let me go get Daddy so he can see your face." She ran into the room and shook Jeff's dad from his sleep. "Honey, get the gun, She stopped as she saw Jeff in the doorway, holding a knife. "Mommy, you lied." That's the last thing they hear as Jeff rushes them with the knife, gutting both of them. His brother Lou woke up, startled by some noise. He didn't hear anything else, so he just shut his eyes and tried to go back to sleep. As he was on the border of slumber, he got the strangest feeling that someone was watching him. He looked up before Jeff's hand covered his mouth. He slowly raised the knife, ready to plunge it into Lou. Lou thrashed here and there, trying to escape Jeff's grip. "Shh," said Jeff. "Just go to sleep." The end. That was balls. That was so bad. It sucked ass, man. But yeah, these just sound like just some bullies that the author knew or something, and like always like want to like fight back like a cool anime guy, and just like, "Hey, I'm gonna beat them up and go like choo choo chow, duck under the knife, break their arms, punch them in the nose, stab them in the." That just sounds like some child's power fantasy, doesn't it? Coming home from work, you find that nobody told your under 13 son got arrested for stabbing some kids. Yeah, nobody called you at work or anything. The cops, they come to your home. They're like, "Did you stab some kids? It sure looks like you did. It's a year in juvie. You don't have to be like tried in court or anything. The cops just came in. They're like, "Yep, that's a year. Says so right here in the book. Year in juvie for stabbing 3 kids." A thing of bleach. Yeah, it's like they didn't know what to call that. It's like it's just a thing of bleach. You know, it's just a thing of bleach. It bleached his skin, of course, and then somehow the skin stayed bleached even though he burnt in the fire. Instead of burning, his hair turned black from the fire, of course. Clearly written like a child. Yeah, also like the whole eye twitching thing. He was like taking that anime crazy guy pose where he's like, and like he's like kind of arching out his back, I imagine, and he's like twitching a little bit and going, and probably like licking his knife or something. How did this get the fandom? Exactly. I don't really understand. Well, what caused it? Well, you may recall, just like 2 paragraphs ago, just in case you needed explanations, yeah, just why he turned into like that phase there. You may recall, you know, that he got bleached and set on fire. Also, like how he just like was lying in bed and he's like, I have a feeling I need to kill. And then he's like, I'm gonna go stab some kids because they're bullying my brother. And he just keeps having this feeling he needs to kill for some reason. Twins husbando him as a seen emo totally edgy killer. Yeah, I believe that. I feel like I've seen numerous animes that have a character exactly like this guy, except it's not like, it doesn't look like that. There was this one anime where that got like a guy with bandages on his face, but he was basically Jeff the Killer or something, I'm not sure. He had the knife and he would go and he'd lick his knife and stuff. Jeff the Killer, go sleep, insanity. What is this? Oh, my eyes. Look at this dude. Bullies and liars beware, your doom is near. Naomi Jansen just wanted a normal, carefree life till she met Jeff, a laid-back teenage boy with a dark secret. While Naomi is at camp, she discovers one morning that her long-lived bully, Mallory, was found dead in her cabin. Naomi suspects Jeff, but she decides that he's too sweet to do something like that until a series of events change her mind and her outlook on her own sanity. So Jeff just looks like that? In that story? He just looks like Jeff the Killer looks? And she's like, nah, he's too sweet. It recaps the original kind of. Oh, okay. A little bit. Well, like, she met Jeff, okay. And then she, like, suspects him immediately, according to this premise. I guess there's, like, a bunch. Oh, that's just like a My Chemical Romance guy. What is that? Just a dude. Look at this guy going bleh. Yeah, white hoodie boy, shaggy hair. Wow, it's like it's like we're back. It's like nothing changed at all. It's like that song. And when you close your eyes, it's like nothing's changed at all. They still make characters like this. They still happen. Man. Ain't that something? You gotta show me Jenny Nicholson's reading of that book. Later we can watch it, yes. How long is this book? 76 pages. Huh. $4. I wouldn't really say that's very good value, honestly. I think I spent better $4 in my lifetime. Right. So that's Jeff the Killer. What should follow that up with? Let's see. You sent me a number of those, Minnie, so thank you for that. Do you think I should change up the way I read this? Like maybe do it more ominous, or perhaps any adjustments? Maybe I could change the music real fast while you ponder that. Get some new track in here, like a mysterious cave, serious, fat synth. Nah, that is too intense. Mysterious. Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. Lower tempo in G. Yo. No, that's some music right there. An ominous reading. Okay, I will try. Hold on, let me just fiddle with this pop filter a little bit. So this pop filter is like on like a kind of like a long wire thing, but this wire thing seems like it's broken on the inside or something, and it's kind of loose. So I can't quite attach this anywhere. It's a little annoying. The Russian sleep experiment. Yes, I could do that actually. It's got another one of those scary faces, doesn't it? It sure does. Love me some scary faces. The Russian sleep experiment. My hangover, by the way, is coming and going in waves, kind of. So sometimes I might zone out while reading and have to like refocus a little bit. I need to like take some swigs of coffee or something. Too big a swig. Alright, let's see. Give me a moment. I'm gonna take a short break real fast while I fiddle with some audio stuff, okay? So I'll be right back. Alright, I adjusted my sound a little bit. The pop filter sucks. So I kinda... Sounds alright so far? Okay, thank you. I need to get like one of those ones that sleeve onto the microphone and not like it gets in front of it, because it's just annoying to have. God dang it, Mira, why'd you have to eat mine? Silly dog. Anyway, the next one I have in mind, we're reading the classics today. We're not going to like new stuff, because new stuff sucks. You know, they're not written earnestly anymore. I don't know. I don't trust new stuff, so we're gonna be reading The Russian Sleep Experiment. I'm gonna try to make it a little more scary and ominous, but there's no sleep. Yeah, I guess there is. Where the rule is to pretend that it's real. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Go get one of those top of all time no sleep ones or something. But yeah. Let's get this started in here. The Russian sleep experiment. Russian researchers in the late 1940s kept 5 people awake for 15 days using an experimental gas-based stimulant. They were kept in an sealed environment to carefully monitor their oxygen intake so the gas didn't kill them, since it was toxic in high concentrations. This was before closed-circuit cameras, so they had only microphones and 5-inch thick glass porthole-sized windows into the chamber to monitor them. The chamber was stocked with books and cots to sleep on, but no bedding, as well as running water, a toilet, and enough dried food to last all 5 for over a month. The test subjects were political prisoners deemed enemies of the state during World War II. Everything was fine for the first 5 days. The subjects hardly complained, having been promised falsely that they would be freed if they submitted to the test and did not sleep for 30 days. Their conversations and activities were monitored, and it was noted that they continued to talk about increasingly traumatic incidents in their past. The general tone of their conversations took on a darker aspect after the 4-day mark. After 5 days, they started to complain about the circumstances and events that led them to where they were and started to demonstrate severe paranoia. They stopped talking to each other and began alternately whispering into the microphones and one-way mirrored portholes. Oddly, they all seemed to think they could win the trust of the experimenters by turning over their comrades, the other subjects in captivity, with them. At first, the researchers suspected this was an effect of the gas itself. After 9 days, the first of them started screaming. He ran the length of the chamber repeatedly, yelling at the top of his lungs for 3 hours straight, at which point he continued attempting to scream, but was only able to produce occasional squeaks. The researchers postulated that he had physically torn his vocal cords. The most surprising thing about this behavior was how the other captives reacted to it, or rather, didn't react to it. They continued whispering into the microphones until the second of the captives started to scream. The 2 non-screaming captives took the books apart, smeared page after page with their own feces, and pasted them calmly over the glass portholes. The screaming promptly stopped. So did the whispering into the microphones. After 3 more days passed, the researchers checked the microphones hourly to make sure they were working, since they thought it impossible that no sound could be occurring with 5 people inside. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all 5 must still be alive. In fact, it was the amount of oxygen 5 people would consume at a very heavy level of strenuous exercise. On the morning of the 14th day, the researchers did something they said they would not do to get a reaction from the captives. They used the intercom inside the chamber, hoping to provoke any response from the people they were afraid were either dead or vegetables. They announced, "We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lay flat on the floor or you will be shot. Compliance will earn you one of you or your immediate freedom." What? Okay. To their surprise, they heard a calm voice respond in a single phrase. "We no longer want to be freed." Debate broke out among the researchers and the military forces funding the research. Unable to provoke any more response during using the intercom, it was finally decided to open the chamber at midnight on the 15th day. The chamber was flushed of the stimulant gas and filled with fresh air, and immediately voices from the microphones began to object. 3 different voices began begging, as if pleading for the life of loved ones, to turn the gas back on. The chamber was opened and soldiers were sent in to retrieve the test subjects. They began to scream louder than ever, and so did the soldiers when they saw what was inside. 4 of the 5 subjects were still alive, although no one could rightly call the state that any of them were in life. The food rations past to day 5 had not been so much as touched. There were chunks of meat from the dead test subjects' thighs and chests stuffed into the drain in the center of the chamber, blocking it and allowing 4 inches of water to accumulate on the floor. Precisely how much of the water on the floor was actually blood was never determined. All 4 surviving test subjects also had large portions of muscle and skin torn away from their bodies. The destruction of flesh and exposed bone on their fingertips indicated that the wounds were inflicted by a hand, not with teeth as the researchers initially thought. Closer examination of the position and angles of the wounds indicated that most, if not all of them, were self-inflicted. The abdominal organs below the ribcage of all 4 test subjects had been removed, while the heart, lungs, and diaphragm remained in place. The skin and most of the muscles attached to the ribs had been ripped off, exposing the lungs through the ribcage. All the blood vessels and organs remained intact, but had been taken out and laid on the floor. Fanning out around the eviscerated but still living bodies of the subjects. The digestive tract of all 4 could be seen to be working, digesting food. It quickly became apparent that what they were digesting was their own flesh that they had ripped off and eaten over the course of days. Most of the soldiers were Russian special operatives at the facility, but still, many refused to return to the chamber to remove the test subjects. The subjects themselves continued to scream to be left in the chamber and begged and demanded that the gas be turned back on, lest they fall asleep. To everyone's surprise, the test subjects put up a fence, a fierce fight in the process of being removed from the chamber. One of the Russian soldiers died from having his throat ripped out, and another was gravely injured by having his testicles ripped off and an artery in his leg severed by one of the test subject's teeth. Another 5 of the soldiers lost their lives, if you count the ones that committed suicides in the weeks following the incident. In the struggle, one of the 4 living subjects had his spleen ruptured and bled out almost immediately. The medical researchers attempted to sedate him, but this proved impossible. He was injected with more than 10 times the human dose of morphine derivative, and still fought like a cornered animal, breaking the ribs and arm of one doctor. His heart was seen to beat for a full 2 minutes after he had bled out, to the point there was more air in his vascular system than blood. Even after it stopped, he continued to scream and flail for another 3 minutes, struggling to attack anyone in reach, and just repeating the word "more" over and over, weaker and weaker, until he finally fell silent. The surviving 3 test subjects were heavily restrained and moved to a medical facility. The 2 with intact vocal cords continuously begging for the gas, demanding to be kept awake. The most injured of the 3 was taken to the only surgical operating room that the facility had. In the process of preparing the subject to have his organs placed back within his body, it was found that he was effectively immune to the sedative they had given him to prepare him for the surgery. He fought furiously against his restraints when the anesthetic gas was brought out to put him under. He managed to tear most of the way through a 4-inch wide leather strap on one wrist, even through the weight of a 200-pound soldier holding that wrist, It took only a little more anesthetic than normal to put him under, and the instant his eyelids fluttered and closed, his heart stopped. In the autopsy of the test subject that died on that operating table, it was found that his blood had tripled the normal levels of oxygen. The muscles that were still attached to his skeleton were badly torn, and he had broken 9 bones in the struggle to not be subdued. Most of them were from the force his own muscles had exerted on them. The second survivor had been the first of the group of 5 to start screaming. His vocal cords destroyed. He was unable to beg or object to surgery, and he only reacted by shaking his head violently in disapproval when the anesthetic gas was brought near him. He shook his head yes when someone suggested reluctantly that they should try surgery without the anesthetic, and did not react for the entire 6-hour procedure of replacing his abdominal organs and attempting to cover them with what remained of his skin. The surgeon presiding stated repeatedly that it should not be medically possible for the patient to be still alive. One terrified nurse assisting the surgery stated that she had seen the patient's mouth curl into a smile several times whenever his eyes met hers. When the surgery ended, the subject looked at the surgeon and began to wheeze loudly, attempting to talk while struggling. Assuming this must be something of drastic importance, the surgeon had a pen and pad fetched so the patient could write this message. It was simple: keep cutting. The other 2 test subjects were given the same surgery, both without anesthetic as well, although they had to be injected with a paralytic for the duration of the operation. The surgeon found it impossible to perform the operation while the patients laughed continuously. Once paralyzed, the subject could only follow the attending researchers with their eyes. The paralytic cleared their system in an abnormally short period of time, and they were soon trying to escape their bonds. The moment they could speak, they were again asking for the stimulant gas. The researchers tried asking why they had injured themselves, why they had ripped out their own guts, and why they wanted to be given the gas again. Only one response was given: I must remain awake. All 3 subjects' restraints were reinforced, and they were placed back into the chamber, awaiting determination as to what should be done with them. The researchers, facing the wrath of their military benefactors for having failed the stated goals of the project, considered euthanizing the surviving subjects. The commanding officer, an ex-KGB, instead saw potential and wanted to see what would happen if they were to put back on the gas. The researchers strongly objected but were overruled. In preparation for being sealed in the chamber again, the subjects were connected to an EEG monitor and had their restraints padded for long-term confinement. To everyone's surprise, all 3 stopped struggling the moment it was let slip that they were going to get back on the gas. It was obvious that, at this point, all 3 were putting up a great struggle to stay awake. One of the subjects that could speak was humming loudly and continuously. The mute subject was straining his legs against the leather bonds with all his might. First left, then right, then left again for something to focus on. The remaining subject was holding his head off his pillow and blinking rapidly. Having been the first to be wired to the EEG machine, most of the researchers were monitoring his brainwaves in surprise. They were normal most of the time, but sometimes flatlined inexplicably. It looked as if he were repeatedly suffering brain death before returning to normal. As they focused on papers crawling out of the brainwave monitor, only one nurse saw the man's eyes slip shut at the same moment his head hit the pillow. His brainwaves immediately changed to that of deep sleep, then flatlined for the last time, as his heart simultaneously stopped. The only remaining subject that could speak started screaming to be sealed in now. His brainwaves showed the same flat lines as the one who had just died from falling asleep. The commander gave the order to seal the chamber with both subjects inside, as well as 3 researchers. One of the named 3 immediately drew his gun and shot the commander point blank between the eyes, then turned the gun on the mute subject and blew his brains out as well. He pointed his gun at the remaining subjects, still restrained to a bed as the remaining members of the medical and research team fled the room. I won't be locked in here with these things. Not with you, he screamed at the man strapped to the table. What are you? He demanded. I must know. The subject smiled. Have you forgotten so easily? The subject asked. We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread. The researcher paused, then aimed at the subject's heart and fired. The EEG flatlined as the subject weakly choked out. So nearly free. This is the guy. The end. Scary, spooky, scary, drug zombies on with no sleep. You know, I haven't slept very well in the past few days and I don't look like that. I haven't pulled up all my organs and went, man, I'm gonna eat my flesh now. That's gonna be me soon, yep. That's what happens when you don't sleep. The awakeness zombies come and get ya. But hi Pauline, how you doing? Yes, I'm reading creepypastas. Like the classic ones. With Archibald in the back providing Foley sound effects. He's begging for his food as if those test subjects were begging for their gas. Weren't you, Archibald? The look he's giving me is like, Shram. Wait, hold on. Where is my... Is it here? Yes, I have this here. Hold on. Just let me show you Archibald real fast. As an intermission until I get another story to read. Look at this guy. The Skyrim herpes disclaimer was still there. Yeah, it was. What a little guy, isn't he? He's such a little guy. Very creepy. Very pasta, that man. Thank you for the sound effects, Archibald. I'm going to feed you now. Give me a second. Right. Oh, thank you for linking the no sleep to me, Minnie. Yeah, I think this music I chose is pretty good for creepypastas. Mysterious cave searching, mysterious cave serious mysterious in G. Nice, it's pretty good. It's so warm in here, by the way. It's pretty spooky. Right, so let me open up another one real fast. How about we do another creepypasta and I'll try to check some of those no sleep ones. Yeah. Let's get Squidward suicide. Squidward's suicide. There you go. Alright. Archibald is content. I'm gonna drink a little water. Okay, back to low interaction. Squidward's suicide. I just want to start off by saying that if you want an answer at the end, prepare to be disappointed. There isn't one. I was an intern at Nickelodeon Studios for a year in 2005 for my degree in animation. It wasn't paid, of course. Most internships aren't, but it did have a perk beyond education. To adults, it might not seem like a big one, but most kids at the time would go crazy over it. Since I worked directly with the editors and animators, I got to view new episodes days before they aired. I'll get right to it without giving too many unnecessary details. They had very recently made the SpongeBob movie. The entire staff was somewhat sapped of creativity. So it took them longer to start up the season. But the delay lasted longer for more upsetting reasons. There was a problem with the Series 4 premiere that set everyone and everything back several months. Me and 2 other interns were in the editing room, along with the lead animators and sound editors. For the final cut of an episode, we received a copy that was supposed to be Fear of a Krabby Patty and gathered around the screen to watch. Now, given that the final cut isn't final yet, animators often put up a mock title card at the beginning. It's sort of an inside joke for us, with phony, oftentimes lewd titles being used as such. Such as How Sex Doesn't Work instead of Rockabye Bivalve, in which SpongeBob and Patrick adopt a sea scallop. Nothing particularly funny, just work-related chuckles. So when we saw the title card, Squidward's Suicide, we didn't think it more than a morbid joke. One of the other interns did a small throat laugh at it. The episode started with the happy-go-lucky music playing as normal. The story began with Squidward practicing his clarinet, hitting a few sour notes like normal. We hear SpongeBob laughing outside. Squidward stops, yelling at him to keep it down, as he has a concert that night and needs to practice. SpongeBob says okay, and goes to see Sandy with Patrick. The bubble splash screen comes up, and we see the ending of Squidward's concert. This is when things began to seem off. While playing, a few frames repeat themselves, but the sound doesn't. It's supposed to be synced with the animation, so yes, that's not common. But when Squidward stops playing, the sound finishes, as if the skip never happened. There is slight murmuring in the crowd before they began to boo him. Not the normal cartoon booing that's common in the show, mind you. You could very clearly hear malice in it. Squidward's in full frame and looks visibly afraid. The shot goes to the crowd with SpongeBob in center frame. He too is booing, which is very much unlike him. That isn't the oddest thing though. What's odd is that everyone has hyper-realistic eyes. All very detailed. Clearly not shots of real people's eyes, but something a bit more real than CGI. The pupils were red. Some of us looked at each other, obviously confused, but since we weren't the writers, we didn't question its appeal to children yet. The shot goes to Squidward sitting on the edge of his bed, looking very forlorn. The view out of his porthole window is of a night sky, so it isn't very long after the concert. The unsettling part is that at this point, there is no sound. Literally, zero sound. Not even the feedback from the speakers in the room. It's as if the speakers were turned off, though their statuses showed them working perfectly. Squidward just sits there in the silence, blinking for about 30 seconds, then starts to sob softly. He puts his hands, tentacles, over his eyes and cries quietly for a full minute more. All the while a sound in the background is very gradually growing from nothing to barely audible. It sounds like a slight breeze through a forest. The screen slowly begins to zoom in on his face. By slowly, I mean that it's only noticeable if you look at shots 10 seconds apart side by side. His sobbing gets louder and more full of hurt and anger. The screen then twitches a bit, as if it twists in on itself for a split second before going back to normal. The wind through the trees sound gets louder and more severe, as if a storm is brewing somewhere. The eerie part is that this sound and Squidward's sobbing sounded real. It was like it wasn't coming from the speakers, but that the speakers themselves were holes that the sound was traveling through from the other side. As good a sound as the studio likes to have, they don't have the equipment to be able to produce audio of that quality. Below the sound of the wind and sobbing, very faintly audible, something sounded like laughing. It came at odd intervals and never lasted more than a second, so you had a hard time pinning it down. We watched this episode twice, so pardon me if things sound too specific, but I've had time to think about them. After 30 seconds of this, the screen blurred and twitched violently, and something flashed over it, as if a single frame was replaced. The lead animation editor paused and rewound frame by frame. What we saw was horrible. It was a still photo of a dead child. He couldn't have been more than 6. His face was mangled and bloodied, one eye dangling over it, pooped. He was naked down to his underwear, his stomach crudely cut open and his entrails played out beside him. He was laying on some pavement that was probably a road. The most upsetting part was that there was a shadow of the photographer, but no crime tape, evidence tags, or markers, and the angle was completely off for a shot designed for it to be evidence. It would seem they were the person responsible for the child's death. We were, of course, mortified, but pressed on, hoping that this was just a sick joke. The screen flipped back to Squidward, still sobbing, louder than before, half of his body in the frame. There was now what appeared to be blood running down his face from his eyes. The blood was also done in a hyper-realistic style, looking as if you'd get it on your fingers if you touched the screen. The wind sounded now as if it were that of a gale blowing through the forest. There were even snapping sounds like of branches. The laughing, a deep baritone, lasted for longer intervals and came more frequently. After about 20 seconds, the screen again twisted and showed a single frame photo. The editor was reluctant to go back. We all were, but he knew he had to. This time the photo appeared to be of a little girl, no older than the first child. She was laying on her stomach, her barrettes in a pool of blood next to her. Her left eye was damaged in the same way as the boy, and she was naked except for underpants. Her entrails were piled on top of her above another crude cut along her back. Again the body was on the street and the photographer's shadow was visible. Very similar in size and shape to the first. I had to choke back vomit, and one intern, the only female in the room, ran out. The show resumed. About 5 seconds after the second photo played, Squidward went silent. All sound cut out, like it did when the scene started. He put his tentacles down, and his eyes were now done in hyper-realism like the others were at the beginning of the episode. They were bleeding, bloodshot and pulsating. He just stared at the screen as if watching the viewer. After about 10 seconds he started sobbing, this time not covering his eyes. The sound was piercing and loud. The most fear-inducing thing of all was that this sobbing was mixed with screams. Tears and blood were dripping down his face at a heavy rate. The wind sound came back, and so did the deep-voiced laughing. this time with a still photo that lasted for a good 5 frames. The animator was able to stop it on the 4th and backed up. This time the photo was of a boy about the same age, but the scene was different. His entrails were being pulled out from his stomach wound by a large hand. The right eye popped and dangling, blood trickling down it. The animator proceeded. The next frame was different, but we couldn't tell how. He continued to the next image, and it was the same thing. He then went back to the first and played it quicker, and I lost it. I vomited on the floor. The animation and sound editors gasping at the screen. The 5 frames were not 5 different photos. They were frames from a video. We saw the hand slowly lift out the guts. We saw the kid's eyes focus on it. We even saw 2 frames of the kid beginning to blink. The lead sound editor told us to stop. He had to call the creator to see this. Mr. Hillenberg arrived within about 15 minutes. He was confused as to why he had been called down, so the editor just continued the episode. Once the next few frames were shown, all screaming and sound again stopped. Squidward was just staring at the viewer, his face taking up the full frame for about 3 seconds. The shot quickly panned out. That deep voice said, "Do it," and we saw a shotgun in Squidward's hands. He immediately puts the gun in his mouth and pulls the trigger. Realistic blood and brain matter splatters the wall behind him and his bed, and he flies back with force. The last 5 seconds of the episode show his body on the bed, on his side, one eye dangling from what's left of his head above the floor, staring blankly at it. Then the episode ends. Mr. Hillenberg was obviously angry at this. He demanded to know what the hell was going on. Most people left the room at this point, so there were just a handful of us left to watch it again. Viewing the episode twice only served to imprint the entirety of it in my mind and caused me horrible nightmares. I'm sorry I stayed. The only theory we could think of was that the file had been edited by someone in the chain from the drawing studio to here. The CTO was called in to find out when it happened. Analysis of the file did show it was mixed with new material. However, the timestamp on the change was a mere 24 seconds before we began watching it. All equipment involved was examined for foreign software and hardware as well as glitches, such as if the timestamp was showing us the wrong time. But everything checked out fine. We didn't know what happened, and to this day, nobody does. There was an investigation due to the nature of the photos, but nothing came of it. No child scene was identified and no clues were gathered from the data involved, nor physical clues from the photos. I never believed in unexplainable phenomena before, but now that I've had something happen to me and can't prove anything about it beyond anecdotal evidence, I think twice about things. The end. It is so goofy, isn't it? It's a lot. There's a lot of dead children in these, isn't it? It's a classic. The children, they're dead. They're so dead. Man, but yeah, this is goofy. It's all goofy. It's all. They wouldn't look scary with hyper-realistic eyes, they would just look funny as hell. Oh, and there's this, this picture. There's like a video actually, and it just plays like a staticky sound as Squidward stares with his totally hyper-realistic eyes and realistic blood. Oh, and there's a retake actually. Hold on, there's. Oh, look, there's like a. Whoa, there's like a whole ass episode or something over here. That was made 2 years ago. Huh. Well, that's funny. Hold on. You know what? Let's watch this. Let me just pop this out and we can watch this. Bush. And let me pause my music real fast. Drush. Bung. Yo, love how like when I stop the music, it just kind of bung. It just ominously kind of cuts. That's pretty good stuff. That's pretty scary. I almost started screaming. Let's see, picture in picture. What am I hearing? Am I hearing like music? Yeah, where's that coming from? This is paused. Is there another video playing on my screen? Hold on. It is, okay, yeah. Yeah, it was. Just the most faintest of musics. Oh, that was just the same video, but playing on a different tab. I'm not sure this actually... Hold on, I need to capture the audio. Boof. It's called Red Mist for some reason, but it's good. We're you think this is like really dodgy to have? Like, I suppose not. Chew on the nose, I suppose. This is fine copyright. This is fine. Boing up. Please say what's from the Red Mist, it says. I guess this is related to the thing, but it's not quite the same thing. It's more of a remake, maybe. I don't know what this was linked at the bottom of that article, but why? Oh, okay. It's like it's adding on stuff to it or something. I'm so scared. Yo, I'm like shaking in my pants right now. If you could see my pants, you'd think I'm like moving at the speed of light. How fast I'm shaking right now. It's a little loud, but the video is barely making noise though. Oh, I think it was doubling up actually. But I also might have been facing away from the microphone when I was talking. Wow. When's the hyper-realistic eyes coming? I want to see the eyes. Show me the eyes. They're not gonna do it. They're not gonna. Maybe even they thought it was too silly to do the realistic eyes. Maybe I could make my own remake of that real fast, and we can recreate the feeling that's the writer intended at first to feel, you know. Let's see. Ooh, look at him. Yeah, this is like slightly remade from the original, huh? Okay, so we got Squidward here. Let's get Squidward in here. Bah. So scared. I'm like screaming. Well, I'm like shaking my pants. My pants. Let's get this picture of Squidward. Are those supposed to be realistic? What is that? I don't know what that was supposed to be. Let's see. What is that? I can't even tell. Oh, they couldn't even show him blasting his face off. Squidward! Oh man, it really got it. He's really done it now. Oh man. Uh-huh. A fish does not want to live, says Patrick. Oh, squid isn't a fish, Patrick, you stupid idiot. There you go. That's what it looks like. Beautiful. Simply beautiful. It is the most beautiful thing I have ever witnessed in my entire life. Somebody's shooting fireworks outside. Those goddamn bastards. Oh wait. Oh, I turned this off, but this came up. Very scary things. Oh, there's like a Mickey as well. It's like a sequel or something. They're baiting a sequel to this thing. And I'm like super screaming right now. I'm so scared. Can you see from my face? Oh, let's see. Hold on. I need to do something. Color correction. What's a scary color to give to him? And just make him normal. Make him darker maybe. Like saturate him, desaturate. No. There you go. Perfect. Oh my god, look, I'm like a regular creepypasta. Let's kind of make him like kind of fade away into the background a little. I'm a creepypasta. Well, why is there like a... Oh, I put this in there accidentally. Hold on, let me take this out. And there you go. Perfect. Well, that was Squidward's suicide. That was so very scary. I'm chilled. I'm to the bone. I'm sweating. I'm so sweaty. It's like I'm taking a shower of sweat from just the sheer tension of this story. It was so scary. The dead children, it's always a classic. Always gotta kill the children. You know, never forget to kill the children in your scary stories, because like, it's horror after all is not for kids. It's not for kids, and thus you can't have kids in them. That's why they're all dead. That's why they're all dead. Adjust my mic a little bit. It spooks the children, yeah. When the children go, but I'm a child, and that's a child, and if he's dead, then I'm dead too. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, let's see. So next one on the line, I've read a couple of creepypastas, right? I think I'll read like one more maybe, just cause, yeah. A longer maybe one, like this one's a decent length, I suppose. Maybe I'm gonna read a couple from R No Sleep on Reddit. Alright. And see what stands out. One or two based on how long they are. Man, let's see. Reading r/no sleep. And let's get the top rated one on r/no sleep called My Sugar Daddy Asks Me for Weird Favors. My Sugar Daddy asks me for weird favors. God, that's a long title. It is by user epatbup. Epatbup. Let's see, epatbup, what your sugar daddy asks you to do. His Tinder profile said he was 45, but he looked to be in his early 30s at most. Looking for a sugar baby, 700 weekly, no sex. It sounded too good to be true, but as a broke university student, I was willing to take my chances. I swiped right, and Tinder let me know it was a match. His message came seconds later. Hey there, sweetheart. I cringed at that word. I hated it. But $700 was $700. So I sucked it up and replied, hey. His name was Jack. And he told me he owned his own business, although he never specified what kind of business it was. We talked for a while before he asked me for my Venmo to send me the first payment. After a few minutes, I got the notification. I stared at the $700 for at least 20 minutes, expecting to wake up from a dream at any second. But it wasn't a dream. You still there? I clicked on the message. Yeah, sorry. If you don't mind me asking, what are you looking for in return? I stared at the chat until he replied. I'm just looking for you to do a few favors for me, smiley face. That looked like it was going to be sexual to me. Like what? For example, the first thing I need to do is pick up a delivery for me. That sounded innocent enough. But I was still expecting there to be some kind of twist. $700 to pick up a package? Come on, even I wasn't that naive. From the post office or something? No, I'll send you the address, but I'd rather you not do this through Tinder. You got Kick? Or you can give me your number. Kick, what was this? 2011? I decided to give him my number instead, and he texted me the address immediately, followed by the address to his house, where I would have to drop off the package. I'm not home right now, but there's a key on the bottom of the blue flower pot near the door. Go inside and put the package on the coffee table in the living room. Make sure that you lock the door when you go inside the house, and then lock it again when you leave. I grabbed my car keys and wallet and got into my car, putting the address into Google Maps. Got it, on my way. My phone buzzed as I backed out of my driveway. I'm serious, lock the door both times, please. I thought that was a little excessive, but I promised him that I would. The house looked abandoned. It had a broken chain link fence around it, with a small door that was hanging onto dear life. It stuck out like a sore thumb, surrounded by houses that were a lot nicer than this one in comparison. You're here for Jack's shit? I looked up to see a man standing in the open doorway of the house. He took up almost the entire space, his head skimming in the top of the doorframe. He was huge, in height and muscles, and his entire torso was covered in tattoos. Yeah, I guess, I replied, not moving from my spot on the sidewalk. Stay right there, he said. I did. I actually didn't think I would have moved if he had asked me to. I looked around and realized there was no one else on the street. I was a 21-year-old woman alone in the street. I gripped my car keys. A few minutes later, the man came back out carrying a cardboard box. It was about the size of a shoebox, but stained and damp on some of the corners. Can you open your car? He asked. I opened the trunk, not wanting that inside of my car seats, and he set it in. All right, there you go, he said. Thanks, I replied. I walked around to the driver's side of the car and opened the door. Oh, and one more thing, he said. I looked at him. Watch out, he said. I didn't reply. I blasted my music as I drove to Jack's house, hoping it would drown out my anxiety. It didn't. I parked my car in the stone driveway and stayed inside the car, admiring the house. It was a huge house, with stone pillars on the front porch and the greenest grass I had ever seen in my life. I turned the car off and got out. I grabbed the package and walked to the front door, getting the key from where he said it would be. I opened the door and stepped in, closing it behind me. I thought about what he had said, about locking the door when I got inside. I thought that was a little overboard, but as I stared at the closed door, something made me reach out and lock it. I walked inside, my feet cushioned by the thick maroon carpet, and admired the inside of the house. All the furniture was wooden and looked incredibly expensive. I would probably finish school a dozen times with the money that it took to furnish this place. I set the package down on the coffee table, and as I walked back to the door, I heard a phone ringing from somewhere inside the house. I froze. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. I took it out to look. Don't answer any calls that aren't from Marvin. I put my phone back and followed the sound of the phone, poking my head into a few different rooms before I found it in an office. I walked over to the desk and looked at the caller ID. Incoming call from Jack. That was odd. I grabbed my phone to look at the message again. I was starting to get a little bit creeped out and decided I wouldn't answer, just to be safe, and left the house, remembering to lock the door as I left. I've done a few more favors for Jack since then. I drove a BMW to a random park in another city, only to get out and drive a different car back to Jack's house. He had me meet one of his employees at lunch, who then gave me a briefcase to deliver to the first house I had gone to and told me he would know if I looked inside. On several occasions, he asked me to drive down that same house and stay with a guy whose name was Julio for a certain amount of time. In total, I made about $3,500. Most recently, Jack asked me to stay in his house overnight. I woke up to a text message from him. I need you to spend the night at my house. I hadn't even seen him in person, but I had talked to him on the phone a few times. He proceeded to tell me he would pay me $1,000 to spend the night at his house, provided that I followed a few rules. I drove to his house that evening. The driveway was empty, and it normally was, but the porch light was on. I walked up, unlocked the door, went inside, and then locked it again. Everything in the house looked the same. Jack had told me over the phone that he would leave the list of rules on the dining room table. I set all my stuff down in the living room. My bags looked like garbage compared to the fancy furniture in there. I walked into the kitchen, and then to the dining room. Sure enough, there was a piece of paper on the wooden table held down by an empty glass. Lock the door when you come in. Only answer calls from Marvin. Don't turn on any faucets between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. Don't open the door for anyone, no matter who they say they are, after 10 p.m. If the door to the closet at the end of the hall is open, sleep in the library. If closed, sleep in any of the bedrooms. The gardener comes at night. If he starts knocking on the windows, hide. Turn the TV on and let it play on static through the night. Do not forget to do this. Help yourself to anything in the fridge, smiley face. I'll pay you in the morning. Good night. I made sure to follow all the rules. To be honest, I was regretting my decision, but seeing as I was already there and I was getting paid, I decided to stay away. I figured as long as I followed all the rules, I'd be perfectly safe. Still, it felt a little odd. What was this, a haunted house? Nevertheless, I lounged around the house for a few hours, as I was planning on going to sleep around 9, since that's the time that all the weird shit would begin to happen. At 8:50, I brushed my teeth using the faucet for the last time before 9. I checked the closet in the hallway, and upon seeing that it was open, I moved my stuff into the library and got ready to sleep on the couch. I locked the doors just in case and laid on the couch, scrolling through my phone. I hadn't gotten any more messages from Jack, and I started to think up scenarios and reasons as to why he had such strict, peculiar sets of rules in his house. I had dozed off at some point because at exactly 10:16 p.m. I was woken up by the doorbell ringing. I was about to get up to check, but then I remembered the rule. Don't open the door to anyone, no matter who they say they are, after 10 p.m. I stayed on the couch, trying not to move, paranoid that they would hear even the slightest sound. It's the police! Open up! I didn't move. Hello? It's the police! Open up or we're coming in! I still didn't move, but I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. There was silence for a while after that. The doorbell rang again. Hey, it's Jack! Let me in! It sounded like Jack, but still, I didn't get up. He would have a key, wouldn't he? Why would he need me to let him in? This continued for almost a full hour. Different people would ring the doorbell, announce themselves, and then disappear when I didn't respond. I was finally able to fall asleep, and the gardener never came. When I woke up the next morning, I heard someone in the kitchen. I got up slowly and unlocked the door as quietly as possible, taking my phone with me and walking across the living room and into the kitchen. I stopped at the entrance and peered in. It was Jack. He was standing in front of the stove, stirring something as the coffee machine brewed coffee on the counter behind him. "Hey, good morning," he said when he saw me. "Hi," I replied, nervous. I hadn't seen him in person before, but he looked exactly like his pictures online. "Scrambled eggs?" he asked, motioning to the pan with a wooden spoon. "Yeah, thanks," I replied, walking over to take the plate from him. I ate my breakfast and drank some coffee in silence. "So, how was it?" he asked. "It was okay. Nothing super freaky happened," I replied. "Cool," he replied. There was an awkwardness in the room. "I think I'm gonna go now. I have class," I trailed off. "I didn't, but I really want to get out of there." "Oh, no, yeah, sure. I'll talk to you some other time," he replied. I grabbed my stuff and he walked me to my car. I could see him standing in the driveway, staring at me as I left. When I got home, I unpacked all my stuff and noticed that I still had the list with me. I sat on my bed and read it again. I felt my body tense up as I realized that I had forgotten something. "Turn the TV on and let it play on static through the night. Do not forget to do this. Turn the TV on and let it play on static through the night. Do not forget to do this. Do not forget to do this." I stared at the words on the page until they lost meaning. Beside me, my phone buzzed, snapping me back to reality. It was the $1,000 payment. I looked at my phone and then back at the list. Maybe it wasn't an important step. As I was thinking this over, a text from Jack came in. "I'm not in town right now. I should be back next week, so you're free from running any more errands for me until then. Just send the payment. Go do something fun." I stared at the message and read it again, and again, and once more for good measure. "I'm not in town right now." I thought back to this morning and how Jack was in his house, how he gave me breakfast. "I'm not in town right now." Within moments, a new text came in this time from a number that I didn't recognize. "Did you forget to do something?" The text was followed by a picture of Jack, or whoever this version of Jack was, standing in front of the TV. I didn't respond. Next came another picture. This one was outside of my house. It was followed by another text. "Watch out." The end. Eh, it's like one of those mimic stories. They like the mimics in these stories a lot. You know? But yeah, sweetheart, I suppose it's like, "Oh man, don't patronize me," kind of thing, maybe. You know, "Don't look down on me. I'm not your sweetheart yet." Kind of deal. Maybe. Mhm. Also, it's not like a sugar baby or sugar daddy. It sounds like she was a drug mule or something, you know? You go there, you take the box, you put it over there, you drive a car, it's probably full of drugs, you take a car, it's probably full of money, you take it over there, you go around back and forth, you know. It's like she was a drug mule. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a memorize, follow every rule process. There's some of these, yeah, and so you forget the rule and the mimics will get you. But like, yeah, nothing super freaky. Like that was hella freaky. Like, that was super freaky. The fact that there was like an hour long chain of people coming to the door, all different, introducing themselves, asking you to open the door. That was incredibly freaky. Like, why would that not be freaky? Are you crazy? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like, so in the story, she's like, "I made sure to follow all the rules," and then there's not really any rules to follow that she actually apparently made sure to follow. Because locking the door, okay, she did that. We don't know if she even got any calls, so we don't know how that went. So I guess she followed that one. And then the only rule that was there that she could somehow forget to do was the TV. But like, you know, Like that, there's not that many rules. How could she forget that one? It's right there. Like not like I'd sooner forget the faucet thing or something, or the library door thing. I don't know. This one's kind of. I didn't like the style of this writing too much either. It's like very repetitive, isn't it? He said, she said, I responded. He said, I responded. He responded, I responded. Every single action very detailed, as if it was visualized as some sort of episode of a series or something. Like a screenplay, you know? Maybe perhaps written with the expectation that one of those YouTube channels that adopt creepypastas into an episode would notice it and make an episode. And the probable drug muling had nothing to do with it, I suppose, yeah. It's just that it makes it more believable that you would take this offer, but like I'd do this for $1,000, sure. I wouldn't need to do the drug muling. I don't know, yeah. It's kind of a bit of a not really connected too much, is it? It's just a reason to get the character involved with the Jack guy. I feel like this kind of like horror with the specific rules is now like a lot of like horror these days follows this kind of structure, you know. Follow these rules. There's mimics. They love their mimics lately. Also, Julio. No, not Julio. Jack is like the fake guy, right? He's like the mimic doppelganger guy. He's like, watch out, I'm outside your house. But clearly nothing happened because you wrote the story. How could you tell back the story if you're, you know, if he got your ass? I don't know. It's for the top rated story of all time on Our No Sleep. This is pretty weak. Like maybe it would have been better without the like the rules and stuff and like the drug mule and stuff. Like condense it down into something just like a stay for $1,000 at a spooky mansion. And it's like, oh, okay, I'll do it. I need money. And then just weird things happen. But that would require more effort to write it. Let's see what else we got here. Let's do the second one. Let's do the second top rated one. Maybe it's gonna be better. The top rated one was from 5 years ago. The second top rated one is from 3 years ago. It's a bit newer. So it could be better, but it could also be much worse. So this one is called My Wife Has Been Peeking at Me from Around Corners and Behind Furniture. It's gone from weird to terrifying. By Malia Girl 1314. It's like those journals in horror games. Yeah. Oh god, it's alright. He's right outside breaking down the. Oh no! Blood splatter. Yeah. It's real great, those ones. Like at least some of them do the whole voice recording thing, right? But then the games that do voice recordings always heavily overestimate how much people use voice recordings to record their thoughts, because everybody seems to do it in those settings somehow. Hmm. But yeah, it's. Oh, I also forgot that my music isn't actually playing for y'all. Whoops. Ah, well. Get spooked now. Right, so this one is. Okay, this one's fairly long. So this will be the last one for today. Hmm. Maybe for next time I should find like a book to read. We'll see. Because reading books is nice. Hmm. The narration alone worked well too. That's good to know. Maybe the music can just be like really quiet then. Let me turn it down for myself too, just so it doesn't like actually overpower me. Like very quiet. I just think this music maker tool on Windows 95 is so neat that I want to have it running. There you go, it's barely audible, I think. Alright, so this is My Wife Has Been Peeking at Me from Around Corners and Behind Furniture. It's Gone From Weird to Terrifying by Malia Girl 1314. The scariest story of 2022. My wife Lynn and I have been together for 6 years and married for 11 months. Our entire history together has been very normal, and never once have I noticed any weird behaviors or red flags. I can't stress enough how out of character this whole thing is for her. Lynn is very kind, intelligent, and thoughtful. She's always been the no-nonsense type of person. Being childish or trying to scare me is not something she'd normally do. She doesn't even like watching horror movies. When we first started dating, she agreed to watch The Shining with me, because she knew how much I loved horror. She was so scared that she didn't even make it through half of the movie before we had to turn it off. She isn't into anything creepy, and has never been into pranks. It's just not her cup of tea, and that's fine. But that's what was so strange about this. It's just so unlike her. I should also add that she never had any mental health issues, and as far as I'm aware, it doesn't run in her family. I know some people are able to hide their mental health problems, but in the 6 years we've been together, I think I'd have been seen some sort of sign. 2 months ago, I was in the kitchen, making myself some coffee before work. I was running a bit late that morning and knew I wouldn't be able to make it to Dunkin' Donuts for my usual morning fix. I took a sip of my coffee as I hurried down the hall towards the front door. When I happened to notice Lynn peeking at me from around the corner ahead of me, I could only see her eyes and a strand of her long dark hair hanging against the wall. The rest of her body was concealed behind the corner. I nearly spilled my coffee when I saw her. I did burn the shit out of my lips. "Geez, Lynn," I said, wiping a few drops of coffee from my pants. "You scared the shit out of me." She immediately popped out of view like a little kid that had been caught. I heard her scurry off towards the living room, and by the time I got to the front door, she was out of sight. It was really weird. It just totally out of character for her, like I said. But I also found it kind of funny that she was being more playful and a little less serious. I shouted that I loved her, and called her a weirdo. As I shut the door behind me, I hear her laughing. Her behavior was a bit odd, but it certainly wasn't something to call a priest over. I forgot about it by lunch, and by the time I got home, she was her normal self. I didn't bring it up, neither did she. And life went on. The next incident happened 3 days later. It was around 2 a.m., and I had woken up to get a drink. I was standing at the kitchen island, a jug of OG in hand. OJ, I guess. when I felt a strong feeling that I was being watched. For whatever reason, I looked down at the floor and saw my wife's smiling face staring back. She was peeking at me from the other side of the island, staring up at me with wide, unblinking eyes and grinning like the Cheshire Cat. I screamed, I'll admit it, not out of irritation but fear. For some reason at that moment I was scared. At the sound of my scream, Lynn scuttled backwards out of my view, her hands and feet smacking the tile floor as she hurried out of the kitchen on all fours. I didn't run after her or even yell after her. I just stood there frozen in shock, wondering what fuck had possessed her to do that. It took me a little longer than I'd like to admit to go back upstairs, but I eventually did. When I got to her bedroom, Lynn was lying on her side, asleep, or at least pretending to be. I stood there for a while, watching her breathing to be sure she really was asleep. I had the feeling she might jump out at me the moment I got into bed, but she didn't. I climbed into bed and she didn't even move. Her breathing was soft and deep, and I was starting to wonder if I dreamt the whole thing. The next morning I waited for her to come down for coffee, and after handing her a mug and kissing her cheek, I decided to ask her about it. "What was that about last night?" I asked, keeping my tone light so I didn't offend her or embarrass her. She frowned over her cup of coffee, shaking her head like she had no clue what I was referring to. "You were peeking at me again, from over there," I said, pointing to the spot on the floor by the kitchen island. She followed my gaze, and when she looked back at me, she burst out laughing. She laughed so hard that I couldn't help but join her. "You creep me the fuck out sometimes, you know that?" I said. She giggled and set her cup on the counter and wrapped her arms around my neck. "You creep me out all the time, so I guess we're even," she teased. We said our goodbyes and left for work. As I drove, I kept thinking about how creepy it had been seeing her grinning at me from behind the island like that. The sounds her hands made on the floor as she crawled away. I told myself she was just trying to be silly, just trying to join me in my love of all things horror. It's not like I was afraid of her, but it still didn't sit right with me. I started seeing her peeking at me more and more. Sometimes she'd be peeking out from behind the couch or living room curtains. Once she even managed to get inside her grandmother's old trunk that sits at the foot of our bed. I might not have even known she was there at all had the trunk's old hinges not given her away. She had the lid propped up just enough so that only half of her face peeked through. She'd been grinning like an excited toddler. It was unnerving. I didn't even know what to say to her. All I could do was stare. When I finally found my voice, I asked her why on earth she was doing this. She didn't answer, but she had slowly closed the lid, shutting herself inside the trunk. I just walked away, feeling disturbed. I didn't understand why she was doing it, but it clearly made her happy. I just hoped she would tire of the game quickly. Lynn didn't peek at me for the next 2 weeks. I started to think she was done with her weird prank, and I was relieved. We were watching a show on Netflix one night, and I jokingly said that I hadn't seen her peek at me lately, and that she must have given up on her spy game. She looked up at me with a small smile and said, "Maybe I've just gotten better at it." I didn't say anything, but I wondered whether or not she was joking. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about what she had said. Was she still peeking at me when I wasn't looking and I just hadn't noticed? And if so, what the hell was she getting out of this? What the hell was she getting out of this? I started to feel paranoid, constantly checking whether she was watching from around the corner or behind the door. I was jumpy whenever I was home, and she wasn't in full view of me. I felt stupid and a little crazy. But after a few weeks without another incident, I began to relax. I stopped checking behind furniture and walls, and told myself it was just a bad memory. Then, a few days ago, things got so much worse. Lynn left to go to a friend's, and I lounged on the couch and played a couple of games on my laptop. Around 9 p.m., I hopped in the shower, and as I was washing the soap from my hair, I felt that awful feeling that was being watched. I slowly opened my eyes, and I almost had a fucking heart attack. Lynn was peeking from behind the shower curtain. Her entire head stretched into the shower, leaving just her body outside. Her long dark hair hung against the curtain, the ends dripping with water. Her mouth hung open in a terrible grin, eyes wide and red as if she hadn't blinked in a while. I screamed and jumped back against the wall. She didn't move, nor did her smile waver. Her makeup ran down her cheeks in 2 black streaks. She looked giddy and completely deranged. I was fucking terrified. We stood like that for a few moments, neither of us saying a word. Finally, after what felt like forever, she slowly pulled her head back out of the shower, and I watched her blurry figure through the curtain as she moved backwards towards the bathroom door. A second later, the bathroom door slammed shut, hard enough to rattle the mirror. I screamed again and zoomed out of the shower to lock the door. Or jumped out of the shower. I stayed inside the bathroom for over an hour. Maybe I overreacted to some of you, but joke or not, I wasn't going to put up with the crazy shit anymore. That's what I kept telling myself as I paced in my bathroom, stopping to listen at the door every few minutes. Suddenly, I heard a muffled sound, and I pressed my ear against the bathroom door, straining to listen. I couldn't hear anything, but I envisioned Lynn standing on the other side of the door, giggling at her joke. I felt a surge of anger. I was beyond pissed at being made to feel scared in my own house, and made to hide in the bathroom for an hour. All for what? Some joke? If it was a joke, it was an awful one. What the fuck, Lynn? I snapped. This shit is getting really fucking annoying. I waited for her to apologize, or to call me a jerk, but instead I heard a faint moan. So quiet, I wondered if I heard it at all. And then, complete silence. Lynn? I called out, not able to even hide the shakiness in my voice. I got no response, just my own heavy breathing. I swear to God, just fucking stop it, I yelled, pounding my fist on the door. I waited for her to cuss me out, something I would expect from me talking to her like that. I never screamed at her before. But there was nothing, just the occasional drip from the shower head. I won't deny that I was scared, too afraid to open the damn door and face my own wife. I waited another 30 minutes or so, which feels like a fucking lifetime when you're scared. Finally, I decided I wasn't going to spend the night hiding in my bathroom, so I got down on my knees and peered under the door. I almost expected to see her face peeking back at me, but thankfully I didn't. I could see straight down the hallway to the top of the stairs, but no Lynn. I didn't know if I should be happy about that or not. I looked for a few minutes, waiting to see her head pop up over the top step, but it never came. I stood up, my hand hovering over the door, and mentally prepared myself to open it. I slowly turned the lock with shaky fingers, and I was about to yank it open when I heard a sound that still makes me feel nauseous when I think about it. A moan, louder than before. But this time, I was able to tell just where it was coming from. I turned my head to the closet door, as if in slow motion, and locked eyes with my wife, who was peeking out at me from the slight gap. Her eyes were still wide as ever, and her mouth was hanging open with the most grotesque gaping smile I'd ever seen. I didn't even scream. I was too scared for even that. Her hands were clasped to her chest, body trembling with sheer delight, as if she could barely contain her excitement. A sharp, raspy moan bubbled up from her throat, deep and raw, sending a shiver through my entire body. Somehow, I found the ability to pull the bathroom door open and ran as fast as I could all the way down the steps, snagging my keys and phone from the table in the living room before running outside to my car. I could hear her shrill laughter behind me, but I didn't hear her getting closer. I didn't bother shutting the front door. I drove away from the house faster than I can legally drive, shivering the entire time, either from fear of the cold or maybe a little bit of both. I hadn't grabbed a coat or even a pair of shoes. I was still in my boxers and my hair was still damp. I drove straight to my brother Chris's house, about 40 minutes away, ignoring any and every call and text I got. I didn't check my phone until it was safely parked in my brother's driveway. Lynn had called 4 times and sent a flurry of texts, all wondering where I'd gone and why I left like that. I threw my phone at the dash in a rage, furious at her nonchalant attitude. My brother and his wife were surprised to see me, especially just dressed in just a pair of boxers, but told me to stay as long as I needed. Chris lent me some clothes and asked me what happened. I told him Lynn and I had a fight, but didn't get into the details. I didn't want him to think I was overreacting, leaving my wife for a prank, even if it was a strange one. I mean, hadn't I encouraged her for years to lighten up, instead of being so serious all the time? I had wanted her to relax and loosen up, but this was definitely not what I had in mind. I tried to sleep on their sofa, but my brain wouldn't let me sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lynn's face staring at me from inside the closet, knowing she'd been in there with me the entire time she made my skin crawl. She'd never left the fucking bathroom at all. Instead, she slipped inside the closet and slammed the bathroom door shut to fool me. The mere thought of going back home gave me anxiety. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Chris ended up giving me a sleeping pill so I was able to get a little rest. My sleep was filled with terrible dreams, all of Lynn's smiling face. I woke up just as the sun started to rise. My sore body ached from the sofa, and I felt drained. I knew I'd have to call Lynn at some point, but I didn't know what to say to her. I wouldn't be going home unless she gave me her word she'd never do any more creepy shit. I just wanted my wife back. Her normal, serious self never looked so good to me. I was contemplating calling her and telling her that when that familiar feeling came over me. I was being watched. I was staring at the ceiling, my heart in my throat. I didn't want to look away, but the longer I ignored the feeling, the worse it got. My eyes drifted away from the ceiling almost on their own. Her face was pressed up against the window beside the couch, staring down at me with that same gaping smile. Drool dribbled down her lips, leaving 2 long streaks down the glass. I didn't know how long she'd been there, but something told me she'd been there quite a while, possibly all night. I didn't bother screaming, though I was afraid anger trumped any fear I felt at that moment. I jumped up from the couch and pounded my palm against the glass. "Lynn, are you crazy? What the hell's wrong with you? Just go home!" I shouted. "Now!" She didn't move, and her ghastly expression never changed. If anything, her smile only grew, as if she had never been more elated. I could hear Chris and his wife moving around upstairs, as if Lynn could hear them from her place outside. Her head twitched slightly in their direction, and she began to close her mouth slowly. Chris called my name from upstairs, obviously concerned. I turned to see him and his wife Rebecca hurrying down the steps. When I turned back to the window, Lynn was gone. The only sight she'd been there at all was the 2 streaks of drool still dripping down the glass. I tried explaining to Chris and Rebecca about waking up to see Lynn watching me through their window. They were skeptical. Who wouldn't be? Chris and I went outside to the spot in front of the window, but there were no footprints in the dirt, just a slight indent. Animal, probably, Chris guessed. And I didn't argue. He and Rebecca assumed I dreamt the entire episode, but they didn't understand, and I was too tired to explain it to them. I called out of work that day and turned my cell off. I didn't want to face Lynn. Just talking to her was too much for me at that point. I really started to believe something was irreversibly wrong with her, that no matter what promises she made would never be the same again. The thought saddened me to my core. I cried most of the morning. By noon, I figured I was ready to confront her, give her one last chance to explain herself. I could at least give her that after 6 years, I told myself. I turned my phone on and saw the dozens of texts she sent, all from a seemingly concerned wife. Can we talk? I love you. Please call me. I'm really worried. Can you answer? Just come home. And more of the same. All texts telling me she loved me and she wanted me home. How worried she was. Not a damn one addressing the crazy shit she pulled. Like she hadn't been acting like a character from a Stephen King book. Even her texts were different. She normally texted novels just to tell me to pick up a loaf of bread. You'd think she'd have more to say to me after her bizarre shenanigans. I know it probably seems childish to some of you who are miles away from the situation, but if you saw the way Lynn had looked at me, how she scampered away on all fours like some wild animal, grinning at me from inside the closet like a lunatic, then I think you'd find my reaction was warranted. I ended up staying with Chris and Rebecca for another night. I didn't wake up yesterday until afternoon, and thankfully I didn't see Lynn's face watching me through the window. I didn't want to pry because it's not my place, but is this fight something that can be mended? Rebecca asked. She'd made us both a sandwich for lunch, and I knew she wanted to breach the subject without seeming to be nosy. I don't know, she's like a different person, I said, choosing my words carefully. I still wasn't ready for her or Chris to know the full extent of the batshit craziness I'd been dealing with. People change, Ben. But she's still the same woman you married. Maybe you both just need to talk through your issues. Whatever's going on, I'm sure it can be fixed, she said, ever the peacemaker. I think it's beyond that now. I don't think talking would help. I just don't trust her, I said. The words stung in my heart. I missed and loved my wife. But how could I live with someone like that? Living in constant fear didn't sound too appealing. Lynn loves you. She has to be absolutely crushed, she said. I don't know about that, I said. Well, she certainly seemed like it to me. I've never seen her so upset. Very much unlike the Lynn I know, Rebecca said, shaking her head sadly. It took a full minute for her words to really sink in, and when they did, I felt dread worming its way through my skin. Wait, what do you mean? You saw her? You saw Lynn? I asked, my mouth suddenly dry. Rebecca nodded casually, as if that fact wasn't nightmare fuel. Maybe for her it wasn't. She stopped by this morning just after Chris left for work, she said, cleaning the plates from the table. I didn't see her car though. Maybe she took an Uber or something. Beck, what did she say? Did she come inside? I asked, sweat starting to break out on my forehead. I began looking around, examining corners as though a predator lurked behind them. No. She just asked if you were awake yet, and I said you weren't. I asked if she wanted me to wake you, but she said no. Just said to let you sleep, she said as she washed the dishes. That's all? She didn't say anything else? I asked. No. She looked awful though, like she hadn't slept in days. I think you should call her. I got up from the table and thanked Rebecca for lunch. I felt a little bit better at the knowledge that at least she hadn't come inside. Still, I needed to double check that the doors were locked. I sat for a while, trying to figure out what to do next. I didn't want to go home, but I felt that I owed it to Lynn to help her if I could. Hadn't I sworn an oath to love and honor her through the sickness and in health? Clearly, she was very sick. If she was sick, which I truly believed she was, I had to try and get her the help she needed. But I didn't even know where to start. I didn't want to call the police, and besides, what the hell was I gonna tell them? That my wife was speaking at me? That she was being creepy? As bizarre as she'd been, she'd still had committed any crime. Not yet, anyway. The police would have probably said that I was overreacting, but this wasn't some prank. It felt wrong. Dangerous, even. Like something sinister lurked beneath her smile. I knew as her husband I was well within my rights to have her committed, but what if she simply acted normal in their presence? She'd obviously been able to fool Rebecca into thinking she was just a concerned wife. As long as the doctors didn't find her a danger to herself or others, they'd have no choice but to release her after 72 hours. I felt lost and overwhelmed, so I did what any husband in my position would do. I called her mother. I didn't want to, believe me. Her mother, Marianne, and I were never on the best of terms. We'd never fought or anything like that. She just wasn't a very warm person, and wasn't really easy to get along with. She hardly ever smiled, and when she did, only her lips would move into a thin-lipped smile, leaving her eyes as blank as before. She gave off this aura that felt like she was permanently on the offensive. And only met her twice, and both times were for such a short visits. I got the impression that she didn't approve of me for her daughter. Lynn always ushered us out quickly, and she didn't want me to feel uncomfortable, which I was grateful for. Being in her mother's company felt almost unbearable, like walking on glass. I was glad when we moved 3 states away so we didn't have to see her often. I was happy to avoid the woman, but I needed her help. I really didn't want to talk to her at all, but I had to talk to someone, and someone who knew Lynn better than I did. So I grit my teeth and did what I had to do. Yes, she answered, already sounding irritated. Marianne, it's me, Ben. Do you have a moment to talk? I asked. I could hear her cluck her tongue in irritation. I'm in the middle of writing some checks, but if you insist, I suppose I can spare a moment. What is it that you want to discuss, Benjamin? She said coolly. It's about Lynn. She's been acting strangely, and I was wondering if you had any idea whether there was something. I was quickly interrupted. It's a bit difficult to follow your rambling, Benjamin. What is it that you want from me? She asked. I could almost see her standing there in her thin sweater and slacks, tapping her fingernails impatiently on the table. I wanted to know if you'd ever noticed any odd behavior, or possibly any mental health issues? I asked. There was a long, uncomfortable pause that I couldn't tell was because she was just thinking or something else. Finally, after a few seconds, she spoke. I'm not sure if this is one of your jokes, Benjamin, but if so, I don't find the humor in it. Now, I do have business to attend to, as I've said, so if you don't mind, she said, but I cut her off before she could get rid of me. Marianne, it's not a joke. I'm sincerely concerned about Lynn's mental health. Her behavior has been very erratic lately. I'm very worried about her, and I figured as her mother you would be as well, I said, my frustration evident in my voice. If you're truly concerned, then I suggest you get the health professionals involved. I don't know what you expect of me, she snapped. I could tell she was seconds away from hanging up, and for some reason I was desperate not to let her. I had the feeling that she knew a lot more than she was letting on. Please, if not for me, do it for Lynn, I tried. I heard a faint, shaky intake of breath, as if she were trying to hold her steely persona together, but failing. Marianne? What's wrong? I started. Benjamin, I don't know what to tell you. My only advice would be to seek professional help. Do not call here again. Goodbye. I tried to call out to her, but she had hung up. I tried to wrap my head around the call and her refusal to help me. Even if she didn't like me, why wouldn't she want to help her own daughter? I could understand that. I tried to replay the conversation, desperate to find something I missed. After a while, I almost gave up, until I remembered her last words to me. Seek professional help, she said those words with a bit of urgency. I could have just been grasping at straws, but no. I was sure her voice had changed ever so slightly when she said that, as if they were very important. What had she meant? I assumed she'd been referring to medical professionals, but maybe she was referring to someone else. Someone that she didn't, for some reason, feel comfortable saying directly. Or maybe I was just desperate. I waited for Chris to get home, and after a very long and exhausting conversation with him and Rebecca, I convinced them that Lynn truly needed psychiatric help. I didn't tell them everything. I wasn't prepared to go into it yet, but I told them about her last encounter, how she'd hidden in the bathroom peeking at me from the closet. They were obviously shocked, but thankfully they believed me. They too just wanted to help her. Still, they didn't think it was all that serious. Weird, maybe, but not dangerous. They just kept saying that Lynn had to be playing some kind of weird joke. Maybe for YouTube? Rebecca offered, if only half-heartedly. Chris didn't think she would involve the police. Chris didn't think we should involve the police just yet. He offered instead to go with me, and I readily accepted. He reasoned that calmly talking to her, trying to coax her into going willingly, was the best recourse. I agreed to do it his way. At least I wouldn't be going to that house alone. We drove over this morning just after breakfast. There was no way I was going at night. When we pulled into the driveway, my stomach began doing somersaults. Her car wasn't there, but I still didn't let my guard down. The front door was ajar, and for a split second I thought we'd see her eyes staring through the gap. I was shaking and starting to sweat. Chris, however, was fine. He waited for me to open the door, his hands in his pockets. Like he was going a fucking stroll through the park. I envied his ignorance. I pushed the door open and was immediately hit with the stench of rot. Chris smelled it too, and he walked in the house behind me with his nose scrunched up. What do you guys use to clean the floors around here? Shit? Chris mumbled. Shut up, I said, my eyes darting around for any signs of Lynn. The house was deadly quiet and dark despite being 10 in the morning. All the curtains were closed up tight, refusing to allow any sunlight inside. If I hadn't left it just 2 days prior, I'd have thought the house should be abandoned. We moved through each room, carefully checking any place that she might hide, occasionally calling her name. What the fuck are you looking under the couch? Chris asked eventually. Aren't we looking for your wife? He was looking at me like I was a moron. Let's just go upstairs, I whispered. He shook his head, but followed me up the stairs to check the bathroom and the spare bedroom. On the way up, my shoes crunched over pieces of glass that looked to be littered over a few of the steps. I noticed that one of Lynn and my wedding portraits had hung on the wall along the staircase had been shattered. The frame hung crookedly, all the glass removed. I stared at the picture, a lump forming in my throat. We had taken the photo just after leaving the church, after saying our vows. She looked so beautiful in her white gown. I looked at Lynn's beautiful face. I never dreamed her face would ever be a source of terror for me. We climbed the rest of the steps and checked the spare bedroom, but it looked completely untouched. I was hesitant to go into the bathroom, my fear from that night coming back to me all at once. Chris noticed and offered to go in by himself, but couldn't let him do that. So we walked in together, checking the closet and the shower. The bathroom looked as if it hadn't been touched since the night I left. I don't think she's here, Ben. Why don't you pack some clothes and we'll try coming back tomorrow or something? Chris said. I nodded and we went into our bedroom and shoved some clothes into a duffel bag. When I checked inside her closet, I came across the source of the smell and gagged. Chris took one look and lost all color in his face. He had to go stand by the stairs to get away from the sight and smell. I gazed down in shock at what lay inside the bedroom closet. Soaking into the rug were at least a dozen eyeballs, all carefully laid out in pairs. Some were as large as a quarter, while others were as tiny as a marble. I stared down at the eyes she'd collected from small animals, and I wondered how she'd gotten them and shuddered at the thought. Man, I thought I had it bad with Becca's shoe addiction, but fuck me, your wife's in here collecting eyeballs, Chris said, gagging. Ben, I think we should go, he called from the hall. I'm getting nauseous. Alright. I grabbed my duffel and shut the closet door in my new nightmare. I stepped out into the hall and took a deep breath of air. I could taste the rot on my tongue and I couldn't help but gag. Who the fuck lines up eyeballs in a closet like that? Chris mumbled. I tried to tell you she needed help, I said. She doesn't need help, Ben. She needs a fucking exorcist, he said. You coming or what? I can't stand the smell any... His words died in his throat and his eyes grew wide with fear. I didn't ask him why. I could feel it. Someone was watching me and I didn't think it was the eyes in the closet. I turned around, my eyes slowly scanning the bedroom. Christ, I whispered. As I finally saw what we'd missed, under the bed, curled on her side, watching us with the excitement of a kid on Christmas morning, was my wife. She held her hands together just under her chin, and they were shaking eagerly. Now that she knew she'd been found, I could hear the quiet noises she was making. A sort of hiccuping sound in her throat, as if the excitement was just too much for her. It was unnerving to say the least. Wide eyes and that same huge smile. Everything in me told me to run, but I forced it away. This was my wife. No matter how twisted, she was still the woman I married. I had to help her. Lynn, I said softly. She didn't respond, but her head bobbed back and forth in two quick little movements as if she were nodding. Baby, I just want to help, okay? Can you let me do that? I asked. I had taken a single step forward, approaching her like some kind of dangerous animal. I love you, Lynn, I said softly, taking another step closer. She let a tiny moan escape her wide-open mouth, and I had to resist the urge to run. Her shoulders were starting to quiver, and her eyes grew as large as saucers. I crouched down so I could see her better, and immediately saw the blood. Her hands were covered in it. They trembled more the closer I got, as if she was barely able to contain herself. Lynn, are you hurt? You're bleeding, I said. She bobbed her head again. Her bloody fingers... I lost the track a bit. Her bloody fingers moving up and down as if playing an invisible piano. They occasionally grazed her chin, leaving smears of blood on her skin. I wanted to recoil in disgust. The smell that was coming off of her was revolting. I could feel the vomit trying to climb up my throat. Her lips were dry and stretched thin, blood seeping between the cracks. I knew she wouldn't come out on her own, but I didn't want to leave her in the state she was in. I scooted closer and reached out to her. The excitement and hiccuping sounds got louder, and her hands shook, fingers flexing. It was then that I could see the blood oozing from in between her fingers. Oh my God, Lynn, you're bleeding, I said. Instinctively, I reached out to take her hand, but before I could even touch her, her hand sprang out towards me. A sharp pain shot through my arm and I fell back on my ass. My arm burned and I could see the blood dripping down onto the carpet. I looked back at her in shock and saw her grinning madly, her fingers clutching a large shatter of glass. You alright in there? Chris asked from behind me. I turned my head slightly and nodded to him, cradling my arm to my chest. When I turned back to face Lynn, I saw that her focus had shifted. She wasn't looking at me anymore, and she wasn't smiling anymore either. She was staring past me, her eyes glaring at Chris the way a hungry lion might stare at an antelope. Her mouth was still hanging open, but it was twisted into a snarl. I got to my feet and began walking towards down the hall, afraid to take my eyes off her. "Are you bleeding?" Chris asked. The moment the words left his mouth, Lynn started fast scooting out from under the bed, the glass shard still in her fist. "Chris, run, go!" I yelled. He must have been too afraid to move, because a second later I felt my back bump into him. He was still standing at the top of the stairs, staring at the horror that was my wife. Lynn had crawled completely out from under the bed and stood in the bedroom doorway, her face twisted in rage. Her whole body was visibly tense. Blood ran down her fingers and onto the floor. "Jesus, Lynn," Chris said. "You, playing hide and seek?" I reached back and pushed him towards the steps. "Move your ass, Chris," I said as quietly but firmly as I could. Lynn bobbed her head in fast, sharp motions and began to grin, stretching her mouth open wider and wider so that her chin seemed to touch her chest. I heard Chris mutter a prayer, and then he was running down the stairs. I stood at the top of the steps, stuck between the love for a woman who clearly needed serious help and self-preservation. "I only want your help," I said, choking back tears. Her eyes focused on me once again as she slowly lifted the glass, holding it out in front of her. And then she started sprinting towards me, grinning with utter excitement. Thankfully, my body took over, and I flew down the stairs, skipping 2 or 3 at a time. I made it to the front door before I felt her leap onto my back, wrapping her arms around my neck, her open mouth next to my ear so that I could hear those terrible hiccuping sounds up close. I shook her off me, knocking her to the floor. I felt a searing pain on my back as she went, but I tore open the front door and bolted to my car. Chris was standing in the front yard, talking on the phone with the police. I didn't say a word. I just ran to my car and jumped in. Chris took the hint and followed me, still on the line with 911. I watched the rearview mirror, sure I'd see her there, running after us, but I never did. I went straight to the ER and got 11 stitches in my arm and 3 on my back. The police asked a lot of questions and went back to the house to do a search, but of course, Lynn wasn't there. They advised me to stay with a friend or relative for a while and to file a restraining order as soon as I could, but none of those things would matter. Somehow, I just knew. I dropped Chris off at home and went to a motel an hour away. I wanted to put as much distance between me and Lynn as I could. This is where I've been for the last 4 hours. I thought maybe the police would find her. Maybe they'd get her the help she desperately needs. But now I don't think so. Because 40 minutes ago, I got a text from an unknown number. Just 3 words. "I found you." And a picture attached. The picture was dark and grainy, but I instantly knew what it was. There was no mistaking my wife's eye. I started typing this out immediately afterwards. I don't know what to do. I'm alone and scared, and I can't help but feel that I'm being watched. The end. Again with the "I found you" text messages. And the picture. Man, come on. And with the doppelgangers. Or mimics, I'm not sure which one this is. Like, I think this one was pretty decent, actually. Yeah, like, being able to type that up is kind of silly. But, like, just, this wasn't badly written, actually, I think. I would have preferred if the wife didn't have evil smiley guy face on her. Which turned into an evil angry guy face when she saw somebody she didn't like. But otherwise, that was pretty decent. And of course, she had to have a gaping mouth that was open really wide, and her eyes are like scary and stuff. Also, eyeballs don't smell bad. I don't suppose. No, I'd suppose they smell bad if they rotted, but like, surely 12 eyeballs wouldn't stank up the entire place, right? That doesn't sound right to me. Unless she was stanking up the place from under the bed. But, I don't know. Overall, it's not too bad. But these seem to follow a pattern a lot of the time. These no sleep ones, at least. Somebody I like is different now. Or there's a weird man and he's strange and he's got a smiley face. But yeah, it's alright. It's alright. But yes, now I can respond. Let's see where were we? Hi Squid, hi, hello. We're having a nice weekend. Yeah, having a pretty good day today. Other than the hangover. We got educated about dinosaurs and we read some spooky stories. So it's going pretty good. Only one of these has been spooky at least. I think this one's the only one that I could call spooky so far. Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. If they didn't have the smiley evil guy, I would have been more down with it, but the spooky smiley guy ruined it. Let's see. Let's see. Where is the start of the messages that I haven't read? Orange goose bouncing from. Yeah. See the guy at least like he pissed off immediately. That's pretty believable. In his underpants, which I feel like if I were the sibling of somebody who arrived in just his underpants telling me he had a fight with his wife, I'd think something real crazy went down. Because, like, you ran out without even dressing up? How does that happen? You know, that's something extreme gotta happen. But, like, also, like, this story, like, all these stories on No Sleep, the fact that they're all, like, presented as if they're being typed up by the person posting these stories on Reddit after the stuff happened to them, as if it really happened, kind of takes away from it all, because clearly you're not in so much danger that you think you shouldn't be typing this, you know? Oh yeah, I'll go on Reddit now and tell this scary story of me, like, being terrified for my life and almost dying to my wife to everybody on the internet, so they're scared. It's like, it kind of takes away from that whole deal. Let me update Reddit about this. I'm about to die. Yeah. Clearly not that bad. And, again. Also, they forgot the mother. The mother storyline. They called the mother. She was like, call some professional help. And then she was scared, but then he's like, maybe I should. And then he didn't do anything about it. He just didn't do anything. It's like, maybe she meant not a medical professional, but somebody else. And that just didn't come up afterwards. Huh. So that was strange. And they just, like, gave up on that plot line? I suppose was the intent of going home to find her was that they could get her and take her to a professional? I feel like you should call the professional first and tell them what's going on, instead of dragging her over. Because, like, we don't know what professional he even had in mind. That was kind of strange. I think the author just kind of forgot about that part. Oh well. There you have it. Creepy wives. Never marry him. But also, this guy is like, hey, I love you, my super serious wife, but lighten up, come on, why don't you lighten up? Lighten up, my serious wife, please, come on. Why don't you lighten up sometimes? And it's kind of weird. Like, you married this person because, like, presumably because you love this person, like, as they are, right? Maybe you should just get a divorce. Because, like, why are you nagging this lady all the time? That she should chill out and like be all whimsical sometimes, you know? Maybe you should have found somebody else then that you want that should be like that. The horrors of marriage, yeah. And the horrors of marriage. But yeah, let me set up, and let's get out of the spooky zone. Let's get the music back in here, the party music. Boosh, douche, douche. It is safe now. It is Sunday, my dudes, which means I need to make a new schedule after this. It's probably not gonna be too different from my last week's schedule, because the only thing I finished was Zombie Dinos, which was a very short game but was really fun. Maybe I will watch a little bit of the VOD of Deadly Premonition so I can at least see what the hell happened in the plots in those few missions we did, because I don't goddamn remember a thing. Oh, the music, of course it is, thank you. Because I have desktop audio capture for the virtual machine, of course. But yeah, I should catch up on Deadly Premonition and remember what the actual plot was. I'll make a schedule. I'll find a new game, possibly to replace Zombie Dinos with. Yeah, Zombie Dinos was actually pretty fun. The fact that it doesn't randomize the dinosaurs kind of takes away from it. But it was pretty fun. Like, as far as those games go, it didn't have much to it, but it got care put into it for sure. Like all those puppets, all those dinosaur stop motion animations they did. Yeah, that was pretty nice. That was a pretty nice game. Nothing amazing, and I feel like if I was a child in 1992 with an expensive ass Philips CDI machine and got this game and it was over in like 2 hours, I'd probably be kind of sad, because it would be the same each time, right? But as like a curiosity, for like $2 that I paid for this thing, €2 or so, it was pretty good, and I loved the sick ass theme song, and I wanna kick the brains where they came from to the far side of the moon. You know, I wanna do it. I wanna kick him. I wanna be Richard Kickham. You know. Brain Kickham. It is so warm in my room. Oh my god. Streaming just like churns out hella heat out of my computer in the summer. It's terrible. But yeah, so big. Oh, big rest, big yawn. Duke Kiss'em. That's not a copy paste, that's a game. Is it not? Or was that Rick Huggum or something, was it? I know there was like a joke game that came out where you're like not Duke Nukem, but you're like making friends and hugging them instead of, you know, nuking them. But yeah, no rest for me though, because tomorrow I'll come back with Disco Elysium. I keep on churning, I keep on chugging on. Doug Huggum, that's the guy, that's the dude, man. That's the dude. Doug Huggum. Oh my lord. Oh my god. Doug Huggum. Yeah, look it up, Hattie. It's wonderful. It's great. I love it. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something. I forgot. I forgot what I was gonna say. I need like good sleep because I didn't actually sleep that well. I slept like 3 hours maybe after everybody disconnected from that voice call, and then 2 more hours after like 5 hours being awake. So it's not the best sleep. And I need to rest, and maybe my brain will recover. And the hangover will be gone. Just like I wanted to be in Disco Elysium. I strive not to be like that guy now. It would be a little bit unfortunate if my memory went away, even though I don't have much of it. So hope it doesn't. I don't suppose I've ever drank so hard that I'd forget my memories. I don't suppose that was ever a thing. Big yawn. Big yawn. Yeah, wake up with no shoes or shirts. Pants full of mysterious fluids. I don't want that to happen. And yeah, that's until Deadly Premonition, yeah. Maybe I should forget Deadly Premonition. No, it's sadly it is uneconomical, so I cannot purge it off my mind. Someone pissed in my armpits, yeah. Everybody outside has a story to tell about me. I don't think I want that kind of destiny. That kind of life just ain't for me. No. Let's say hi to Cup as a cat. Let's say hi to Cup as a cat when I turn the raid command back on. There you go. I love it. I need to take a throat pill, I think. Because all this reading and talking has worn out my mouth. Yeah. Let's go! Let's all go! Hang out with the cool puppet thing. It's pretty cool, that puppets they've got. It's pretty good. Yep, I'll rest up. I'll drink some water and maybe eat something. And I'll come back with you tomorrow. I'll post a new schedule. I'll find a new game to play, replacing zombie dinos. Yeah, those are my plans. And that's all I gotta say. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to me read. I hope it wasn't too bad. I still need to figure out the most optimum position for my microphone because I feel like I've been struggling with it lately. And yeah, bye. I'll practice my dramatic reading skills more. See ya. Bye-bye. Goodbye.